Kim, and last night I finished my reread of Dune. So we were going to talk about that third part called The Prophet, which takes place 2 years after the previous Muad'Dib part. 2 years have passed. Paul is now 18. I had to kind of figure out how he went from being 15 at the beginning of the book to 18 at the end. And my best understanding, not to get too bogged down in the details, is that since he's the same age as Fade, and Fade had that birthday arena fight in the second part of the book, which means he would have been turning 16 and then 2 years later 18. I don't know if that's exactly it. I don't know if the math really adds up. At some point, Jessica in this part says it's been almost 3 years since they've come to Arrakis from Caladan, so, yeah. In any case, it's explicitly stated that it's been 2 years, which is dumb, because the Baron Harkonnen, when talking to Tufir Hawat, says, several years since Fade's arena battle, but 2 is not several, and I don't know if the Baron is trying to feign ignorance. At that point, he's trying not to let Tufir know everything, and Tufir's yelling at him I'm a Mentat and you have to give me all the data if you want me to do the job for you. In any case, all this to say, Paul and his mother are fully embedded with the Fremen at this point. Paul does his big worm ride, something that apparently 12-year-old Fremen boys typically do, so Paul is well past due to fully be Fremen if he can't ride a worm. He has been teaching the Fremen the weirding way, which is, as best I can tell, some combination of his Mentat and Bene Gesserit training, so that they become even better fighters than they were before. He has a son now, Leto II, with Chani. Alia has been born. She's 2 years old, but because of Jessica having had the water of life while pregnant, she's wise beyond her years. So she has this lisping child voice, but says profound and creepy things, and has an understanding well beyond her years that most people in the Fremen community find unnerving. The Harkonnen, Baron Harkonnen is still kind of doing his thing where he's got Beast Rabban over Arrakis, squashing the people, kind of, wringing them dry to try and make it a path for Fade to take over so that the people will be just glad to be rid of the beast, right? Meanwhile, the Fremen continue to best the Harkonnens and the Imperial, support system of Sardaukar or whatever, with their raids, but the Fremen are really wanting the big fight, and Paul keeps putting it off. And of course we get Gurney Halleck back. Paul reunites with Gurney and recruits some of the smugglers. It's all very, I don't know, there's something about just arranging the pieces on the board to get to the big finish, I guess. And this is the point too where Paul decides he needs to drink the water of life himself. Because of his spice diet, his ability to foresee the future has slowly become blunted, because when he was having a little bit of spice, it was clearer, the future possibilities were all very clear, but now that he's having it regularly, it's almost like an exposure thing where if you take a medication long enough, it may quit being as effective. That's what the spice diet has done to Paul's ability to foresee the future. So he's I need something stronger, right? I want a new drug. So he goes off to drink the water of life to see if he can change it the way his mother did. Because then, if that's possible, then he's truly the Kwisatz Haderach. And and his, like, place as a prophet and, a messiah to DUNE is secure. He supposedly wants to do all this in order to prevent this jihad that he keeps, like, envisioning. It feels kind of counterintuitive. Sorry, the cat is rubbing against stuff. Ow! Don't bite me. But, like, yeah, it's like, well, I need them not to go out into the universe and, like, rampage in my name under the Atreides banner. And at the same time, because he wants revenge and because, and for survival reasons, he still needs these people to believe he's some kind of messiah, I guess. It's a complicated thing, but he goes to drink the water of life. We skip ahead 3 weeks. Crowley, do not. We skip ahead 3 weeks. Jessica sends for Chani because there's this whole thing about some people are in the north and some people are in the south, which they kind of touched on in the most recent film, where, like, it's like we need to travel south, but it's really that they keep pushing south to avoid the Harkonnen raids. That's where they're keeping, like, some of their women and children, and also planning for the day that they can seed Arrakis with water and plant life and turn it into basically an oasis as opposed to this desert planet. In any case, Jessica sends for Chani, says he's, like, almost dead. Like, it's been 3 weeks, he's been laying there, they keep telling me he's dead. I have the power to understand that he is very, very barely alive, so I haven't let them, like, take his water for the tribe. I've told them that he's in a holy trance ahead of this forthcoming battle with the Harkonnens, but, I felt like I needed you because nothing I've tried has helped to awaken him. And so Chani goes and is able to wake Paul up, basically. There is none of this, like, anger that we saw in the movie, and it isn't just something that happens, like, in a day. It's like he's dead for 3 weeks. This is very... It occurred to me while reading this, and all of these thoughts are very, like, fresh because I just finished the reread. I might have deeper thoughts about the book later, but this was very, I don't know, there's something very biblical about the mother and the sun rising from the dead, and there's definitely those tones to this story. It's not a one-for-one, obviously, comparison to Jesus and Mary Magdalene, whatever, but, like, there's definitely, I'm sure there are essays about that particular angle. In any case, he wakes up, he is the Kwisatz Haderach. Then they go fight, like, the Emperor has come because he's like, Arrakis is a mess. The guild is upset because they're not getting the spice they want. Beast has not been meeting his quotas, whatever. Part of that is because the Baron kept upping the quota to try and make Beast look worse. Paul fights Fade, like, all the stuff that you see in the films. Paul fights Fade and kills him, takes Princess Irulan as his wife. Again, Chani is understanding in the book. She completely understands this. Paul loses his son, but promises Chani they will have more children and that he will never touch Princess Irulan. It will be a marriage in name only because she is his true wife, so on and so forth. And it kind of ends with that. I mean, Alia kills Baron Harkonnen with a Gom Jabbar, and yeah, the end, right? Like, It's funny because, like, there was something about the ending that kind of makes you think, okay, well, I can kind of see where this story would go. If there weren't more books in the series, I'd just be like, oh, okay. And then he establishes his imperial reign and, is able to make Arrakis what he wants. Paul also, threatens the guild by saying, look, I can destroy the spice. I know exactly how to do it. There's something about using the water of life to do it. It's explained. But, and if I turn the whole of Arrakis into this oasis, there will be no more desert and there will be no more spice. So the guild, realizes the power Paul has and, kowtows to him. And Count Finring, the Emperor tries to get Count Finring to go kill Paul, and Count Finring's like thinking, well, yes, I could do this. But Paul kind of sees Finring and feels a brotherhood with him because he realizes Finring, who's a eunuch, but had maybe been brought up as a prospective Kwisatz Haderach. Paul even says it's like the first time he ever felt this level of brotherhood with someone, and Finrig sees and feels that connection when Paul feels that brotherhood for him and decides he's not going to kill Paul. It was kind of a bizarre thing. We get confirmation that the Countess has given birth to Fade's daughter, so the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother, the one from the beginning of the book, Gaius Helen Mohayim, she realizes this is a disaster because if Paul dies, they're just going to have Alia and Fade's daughter, and they won't have any sons to create the whole breeding thing. I guess Finring, when he didn't work out, they, made him a eunuch, and I was kind of like, oh, that's just them pruning the tree, I guess, but so to speak. So, yeah, it's all kind of bizarrely, the thing I like about this book is that the world building is just excellent. There's a real belief that all of this exists and has existed, and that there's like logic behind, like it all makes, even if it doesn't make sense to you right away, it does make sense. There's a history here. I love that this book has appendices and a glossary. I want to normalize having those in fantasy and science fiction books again. I don't read a lot of science fiction, so maybe a lot of science fiction books do have glossaries and appendices now. But I just remember, like, as a kid, I loved Watership Down, and Watership Down had that dictionary of rabbit terms in the back, the little glossary and everything. So I don't know. I just, again, that makes me feel like there's definitely a world that has been built. This has like Gurney Halleck's song lyrics in it. There's kind of harkens to the Tolkien, the dwarf songs and things, and the elf songs, I guess. Yeah, and as for Stilgar, what's interesting about that is that in this part of the book, this last part, Paul realizes that Stilgar has gone from being a friend to being a worshiper. This is the point at which Stilgar turns. Paul has made a point not to challenge Stilgar as leader of the Siege. And he makes, he makes a big presentation of like, I would not cut off my right arm. I need, Stilgar and my good men. I'm not, for the sake of tradition, going to challenge him. We are going to change the way things are done. And, but yeah, like Stilgar, it's not like in Dune, the film, where Stilgar is almost immediately like, oh my God, this is the Lisan al-Gaib. This is the person we've been waiting for. He's not immediately worshipful of Paul, because Paul's still just this young kid and doesn't seem to know. I mean, he seems to know things, but not enough things, or he's not, grown up enough. He's still not as much a man as most Fremen young men or whatever. We don't really see what happens with his adoptive sons. The woman he inherited from Jameis, Hara, she eventually, I think, goes off to be with Stilgar. It's kind of hinted that she's going to go join his women now that the two boys are older and have been trained by Paul, I guess. But we don't get much more than that from her, aside from the fact that she's very protective of Alia. She, you know, a lot of times people want to cast Alia out, and Hara has basically treated Alia like her own child. But yeah, it's a good book. I gave it 5 stars. I mean, it's probably like 4.5. Again, there are places where it's long-winded, and I find myself skimming the descriptions. There are these dialogues between, like, right before the final battle, the dialogues between Stilgar and Gurney and Paul. I was like, this is not informative, and I guess it gives me some character insight, but it went on for a few pages too long for me. But, you know, it was good. And if you have any thoughts about it overall, leave them in the comments. If you think I should move on to Dune Messiah and read that and report on that as well, let me know. I do have the 6 books from the original, you know, Frank Herbert series on the bookshelf. And like I said, I only ever read Dune, Dune Messiah, and Children of Dune. And I stopped. I can't even remember if I finished Children of Dune. I think I did, but it got weird and I never read the last 3 books in the series. So, in any case, thoughts about Dune, about the movies, about the book, about overall themes, like, you know, it's weird because Paul is like trying to stop this jihad that he keeps envisioning in the future, but he hasn't told any of the Fremen about these visions. He doesn't want to, I guess, tip his hand or share stuff like that. It's and like as a kid I really liked Paul, and I was like, and now I'm reading and I'm like, oh, he's kind of arrogant. That's the other thing. He's a little bit of a Gary Stu. He's like almost flawless. His arrogance even works in his favor. So it's not even like you can say, well, he's, you know, he's kind of arrogant and everything. But he is a little too perfect, too flawless. And I don't know. I don't like him as much now as I did when I was, you know, 11 or 12. So what are you going to do? Like, I read him now and I'm kind of like, oh God, he's kind of insufferable in a lot of ways. And everybody just kind of immediately, even when they resist, like the Emperor, whoever, you know, I don't know. Absolute power corrupts and all those things. But anyway, all that said, again, let me know your thoughts. And if after I've absorbed it a little longer, I have other thoughts, I might do a follow-up or I might just write it in the comments. Until next time, until I decide what I'm reading next, take care.